One of the hottest segments in the country is the PPV segment. It seems consumers can't get enough of pickup platform-based SUVs. And it's no mystery why. After all, they offer a good mix of ruggedness, practicality, and performance. Hence, the PPV segment is very competitive. In the last 2 years alone, we've seen an update or a refresh made to nearly all the contenders. But the question is, can this all-new model leave them all in the dust? Well, let's find out by taking a closer look at the all-new Isuzu MU-X. Isuzu is definitely not a new player in the PPV segment. In fact, their first PPV came out back in 2004 with the Isuzu Terra. It took them almost 9 years to come out with a succeeding model, which is technically the first generation of the MU-X. Now, that also shared the same platform with the D-Max, but it also shared the platform with the Chevrolet Trailblazer. This all-new model is still based on the Isuzu D-Max, but that now shares its platform with the Mazda BT50. So you'll see that this is quite a radical change compared to the previous model. Some say MU-X, some say MU-X. However you want to call it, it's supposed to stand for makes you exciting. And there's definitely a lot to be excited about as we had to wait almost 9 years for this new model. This is offered in 5 different variants, and the one we have here is the mid-spec 3-liter 4x2 LSA. Up front, there isn't much to set it apart from the top-of-the-line model because this still comes with Isuzu's Aero Signature bi-LED headlights. You also get the World Cross grille, and I'm not sure why it's called that, but it definitely looks menacing, especially with these fangs. And there's a lot to set this apart from the D-Max because the air dam is now a separate entity and lies beneath the grille. Along the side, it's easier to tell this apart from the top-of-the-line model because you no longer get the 20-inch wheels. You now get 18-inch wheels, which look rather decent. And it's wrapped in all-terrain Dunlop tires. You'll also be pleased to know that you get disc brakes front and back. You'll see that this has a very subtle design and nothing screams off-roader, which I personally like. The greenhouse is very sleek and you get a high belt line. Even the body lines are fluid and very simple. I also like how nicely integrated the stepboard is. One thing I wish they did keep for the mid-spec variant are power folding side mirrors. The MU-X also gives you a very respectable ground clearance of 235 millimeters. And the best part is you get a 5-link suspension system at the back and a double wishbone suspension system at the front. And we'll see what that's like later on when we take this out for a drive. Now you'll see that clean look is carried over to the rear end where you get this nicely integrated rear spoiler, sleek LED headlights, and a rear fog light. Now, opening this trunk is done manually, but you can get a power tailgate with the top-of-the-line LSE models. Trunk space is more than adequate with the rear seats up, but you can double that by folding the rear seats quite easily. And if that isn't enough, you can also fold the second row seats to give you more than enough space. Now, I also want to point out that this has the best sounding thud I've heard from a PPV. Take a listen. See? Now let's go check out the rest of the interior. Now, despite being a mid-spec variant, this interior feels very upscale. You get soft touch materials on top of the dash with contrast stitching. Now, there are some hard plastics on the door cards and piano black finishes, which I know not everyone's a fan of. But overall, this is a very upscale feeling interior. Nothing about it feels utilitarian. Now, only the LSE model comes with leather seats, but nonetheless, this fabric is very nice, and it's also heat resistant. Plus, it also has some contrast stitching to give it more of a premium vibe. They are also extremely comfortable, and there's just enough bolstering and softness. You also get a good amount of under-thigh support. Now, they may not be power adjustable, but you can still adjust it for height, and the steering tilts and telescopes, so you can really find your ideal driving position. Now, there's also no shortage here when it comes to storage, because aside from getting the usual cup holders and bottle holders on the door, plus the cubby for your phone in the middle, you get a dual glove box. And this cup holder near the air vent is also a very nice touch, because you can keep your drink cool. You're also well covered when it comes to tech, as this comes with a massive 10.1-inch infotainment system that comes standard with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. This is also connected to the rear camera, and the image is actually pretty decent. It also has built-in offline navigation and a clinometer. Moving on to the instrument cluster, you get an analog tachometer and a speedometer, but you get a 7-inch colored multi-information display in the middle to give it more of a modern look. My only minor gripe is the absence of physical knobs and buttons on the audio controls, but at least the driver does get audio controls or controls for his key functions on the steering wheel. And besides, I don't think the passenger will find it hard to operate the audio system from where they're sitting, even in the absence of physical knobs and buttons. Now, you do get physical buttons for the dual zone automatic climate control. However, all the buttons are the same, so it may take a bit of getting used to before you can truly say that they're extremely intuitive. Now, moving on to the second row seats, I initially thought that this would feel claustrophobic given its sleek greenhouse and high beltline. But that's not the case because you still have a nice view of your surroundings. Now, these seats can't be moved forwards or backwards, but there is more than enough leg and headroom. Plus, they do recline quite a fair bit. I also like how these seats are slightly elevated, which allows you to stretch out and put your feet underneath the front seats to ensure that your thighs are firmly planted. As far as amenities go, you get 2 charge ports over here and a center armrest with cup holders. I also love how the AC controls are well within reach for the second row occupants and that the vents are nicely integrated into the ceiling, which gives it a really clean look. Now, PPVs aren't exactly known for giving you heaps of space on the third row, but getting an adult here is actually doable. In fact, this is one of the more spacious PPVs out there. You'll see that there still is a bit of legroom, and these seats also recline to give you a bit more headroom. Plus, the rear occupants also get rear air vents and cup holders, so it really doesn't feel like you got the short end of the stick. And again, this is one of the more comfortable third row seats I've been in for a mid-size PPV. I honestly wouldn't mind sitting here for a long drive, and that's not something I can say about all the PPVs out there. But given a choice, I'd still prefer to be behind the wheel, so let's see what that's like. Okay, so we're behind the wheel of the Isuzu MU-X. And my biggest concern with any PPV, especially one that's this big, is how easy it is to drive. And I can tell you right off the bat that ease of driving is not an issue here because you have great visibility, so it doesn't really feel that big. Plus, the steering response is fairly quick. Now, it's not as direct as a Miata, of course, but the last thing you want in a PPV is something that feels very disconnected because that only makes the car feel bigger than it actually is. And I'm happy to report that with the MU-X, that's not an issue. Now, under the hood of the MU-X, you get a 3-liter turbocharged diesel engine that puts out 190 horsepower and 450 newton meters of torque. Now, that definitely doesn't make it the class leader, but this vehicle feels extremely light on its feet. And that's because peak torque comes in very early on in the rev range, and if I'm not mistaken, that's around 1600 RPM. So that makes the engine extremely responsive. But a PPV shouldn't only cater to the driver, it has to cater to all the occupants on board, and in that regard, the MU-X truly delivers. Again, this has a double wishbone suspension at front and a 5-link suspension at the back, and the ride is very comfortable. This isn't the best road out there, but you can hardly feel the bumps, so the ride never feels jarring. NVH is also very good. You can hardly hear the sound of the engine creep into the cabin. And even if this has all-terrain tires, you don't hear any road noise. This variant of the MU-X can be yours for 1,900,000 pesos. And it gives you a good mix of a really good power plant, a very capable one, plus just the right amount of features. But if you really want to go all out, you can spring for the top-of-the-line LSE model, and that'll give you all the bells and whistles that you could possibly think of. Now, across the range, there's no denying that prices have significantly shot up. But it's also worth noting that the prices range from 1.5 million pesos all the way up to 2.4 million pesos. So there definitely will be a variant to cater specifically to your needs. And for those who think the 2.4 million peso price tag is steep for the top-of-the-line 4x4 LSE model, it's worth noting that it comes equipped with Isuzu's advanced driver assist system, which works with a smart dual camera and rear radars to give you features like forward collision warning and autonomous emergency braking, turn assist, pedal misapplication mitigation, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, multi-collision brake, lane departure warning, adaptive cruise control, and automatic high beam. Prices may be slightly higher, but you now get so much more for the money, which is proof that the PPV segment continues to get better and better.